breathe a bit. Anxiety is already a little higher because I'm not wearing a mask. So my face is going to make expressions, and that is me being perceived. Any words that that I struggle with, that I don't know, that I might mispronounce, I'm gonna spell them out, gonna skip over them if I need to, just to make it a little bit easier for me to just keep on going. Reading The Light Eaters. We're on chapter 2. We got through part of that, only about a couple pages. The next part is... Okay. I'm just gonna breathe for a second. Oh god. It's okay. We're cool. This is fine. Oh, goodness. To start, no one knows this better than a rare plant botanist working on a far-flung island. Steve Perlman is the top botanist at Hawaii Plant Extinction Prevention Program. When I met him, he is 69, with a sturdy build and white hair. Before I got into the thorny world of plant intelligence research, I wanted to see some straightforward, old-school botanizing. I've arrived to see his work, but for now, as we bump along in an old minivan as it struggles up a winding clay road on the northwestern edge of the island of Kauai, we talk about feelings. He doesn't take Prozac like some of the other rare plant botanists he knows. Instead, he writes poetry. Either way, Perlman tells me you have to do something when a plant you've known long goes extinct. Each plant that dies that singularly lonely death marks the end of a multi-million-year evolutionary project. That species' great genetic experiment is over. It's the last line. It's the last in its line. It's okay. We're good. Every native plant on Kauai, Hawaii's fourth largest island and Perlman's home base, is a mind-blowing stroke of luck and chance. Each species there arrived on the island as a single seed, floating at sea or flying in a bird's belly from thousands of miles away. More than 2,000 miles of open ocean sit between Kauai and the nearest continent. Botanists believe 1 or 2 seeds made it every 1,000 years. Kauai was formed by a volcano 5 million years ago and was pushed off the volcanic hotspot by plate tectonics. The island is still drifting northwest, little by little, every year. Another island, then another, would emerge at this geological birth site and drift leftward the same way. Because it was the first Hawaiian island and is therefore the oldest, it has had the most time to collect errant seeds. When a new seed took root in its young soil, the plant would evolve into a completely new species, or more often, several new species, each trying out a different lifestyle in the comfortable embrace of the island's perfect climatic conditions. This process is known as adaptive radiation. The result is thousands of variations on a few species. Each new variation became endemic, found exclusively on the island. I tried to hold the grandeur of that fact in mind while I look out the window of the bouncing minivan. Perlman is driving. Bushy fronds sweep the side of the van like gloved hands. A precipice on one side of the road struggles several plunge. Oh my god. It's fine. My anxiety. Just gonna breathe. I get anxious, I slur my words or speak more or think I know what the next word is, and then I say it and then it's not the right word, or I like mix the words together. So it's just, each little mess up is just slightly increasing the anxiety. But I'm gonna keep pushing. Okay. A precipice on one side of the road plunges several thousand feet down, opening into a canyon covered in pale greens. The higher we ascend, the thicker the fog enveloping the van grows. Soon the dense vegetation outside the window has become a wet green smudge. The road plateaus, I believe, maybe? Plateaus, and Perlman parks and walks out. We are very high up now. He strides out until the tips of his work boots hang over the edge of the cliff and looks down. The vertical drop covered in ferns resembles a shaggy fur coat, with small palms sticking out at odd angles, poking through the mist. The cliffs form a small half-moon valley at their base, its other edge the Pacific Ocean. It is green in every shade for thousands of feet down. Pearlescent wetness clings to everything like spider silk. In many ways, Kauai is the ultimate example of what a world would look like if plants were in charge. The whole island is covered in the surreal products of total floral freedom. When plants are allowed to evolve without fear, they get scrupulously and flamboyantly specific. Oh god. Take the Hibiscodelphus genus? Nope. Hibiscadellphus. Genus. Genus? Gunus. Gen, I think. Did I say U? I don't know. For example, found only in Hawaii, these plants have long tubular flowers, custom made to fit the hooked beak of the honey creeper, the precise bird that pollinates them. Then there is the Vulcan palm, Brighamia insignis, Brighamia space INSIGNIS, or Alulu in Hawaiian, a short tree best described by its nickname, cabbage on a stick. I love that. A goal of mine is to grow some cabbages, because I really like the show The Last Airbender and the Cabbage Guy. We have a poster of him in the kitchen. It's great. Cabbage on a stick. Fun. Over tens of thousands of years, it has evolved to be pollinated only by the extremely rare, fabulous green sphinx moth, its real name. The Vulcan palm, still critically endangered in the wild, was saved from total extinction by Perlman's work in the early days of the Extinction Prevention Program, when he made his own harness out of knotted ropes and used it to hang over the Na Pali coast cliffs. There, 4,000 feet in the air, he would use a small cosmetic brush borrowed from his wife to imitate the moth, carefully transferring the pollen from the males to the females. You'd know if you did it well, Perlman said. When you'd go back, there'd be fruits just bursting open seed. The Vulcan palm is now cultivated as a houseplant in the Netherlands, where there are greenhouses full of them. I wonder if a person with a potted Vulcan palm on their Amsterdam windowsill knows of the drama it took to get there. Other plants adapted to live at very specific heights where, say, the mist that drips from ferns clinging to the cliff just above them creates a perfect moisture balance. Outside of Kauai, in most every other place on Earth, plants have had a very different evolutionary trajectory. The first plants with seeds and flowers appeared some 200 million years ago. Since then, they have split and evolved into hundreds of thousands of species that have had to adapt to threats of all kinds, which start the moment they sprout. When a seed decides to take root, it makes a tremendous gamble. Seeds are embryos encased in nutrients. A seed scientist once described them to me as a plant in a box with its lunch. The blueprint for the whole plant is in there, dormant but alive the whole time. A seed might blow around for a decade, waiting patiently for the right conditions to poke out a first root. Once it sends this first root out, it has given up any chance of movement. Immobilized, it will now face whatever threat comes. Wind, snow, drought, animal mouse, from right where it stands. The baby plant root has 48 hours after it decides to emerge to locate water and nutrients, and then push out a leaf or two and begin photosynthesizing before it runs out of resources and dies. The first green parts of any plant are folded, pre-assembled, and waiting inside the seed. This pre-assembled plantlet bears little resemblance to the plant itself. It consists of one or two cartoonish green lobes on a short green stem, the manifestation of the plant emoji, and it is entirely temporary. It unfolds and inflates, filling with the first drop of sap pulled in by the pioneer root, and begins the job of photosynthesis. If it is successful, this protoplant, this space shuttle into the world of air and light, will be cast off like a rocket booster and replaced with real leaves, of which the variations are infinite. Only after this trial period, this checking to see what sticks, does the plant come to resemble the one it was meant to be, mantling itself in the features of its lineage, and then adapting them to a new environment. My voice is getting a little so sorry about that. I'm gonna have a little drink. I don't talk out loud often. This is my practice. Exposure therapy. Ugh. Okay. Even then, the plant has overcome only the first of many threats to its young life. Any given seed has a vanishingly small chance of making it into its full plant form. Many of these threats are grazing animals, creatures that can run and forage across a broad terrain, and whose essential functions include a central nervous system. Plants have none of these advantages. I'm going to say that again. Plants have none of these advantages. They cannot run away. Instead, they've developed ingenious and complex means of defending themselves from their tormentors, as well as ways to eke out a lifetime of nutrients from the very spot they first landed as seeds. Ugh. Carbonation. The dangers of being immobile are precisely the forces that have driven plants to engineer some of the most impressive adaptations in nature. Perhaps a plant's biggest achievement is its anatomical decentralization. A plant is modular. Snap off a leaf and it can grow a new one. Without a central nervous system to protect, the plant's vital organs are distributed and come in duplicates. That also means a plant has evolved remarkable ways to coordinate its body and defend itself. They might grow thorns and spikes and stinging hairs, developed with remarkable precision, to pierce the flesh or exoskeleton of whatever mammal or bug might be its main threat. They might secrete sticky sugar to entice and then immobilize their antagonists, whose hungry mouths get stuck shut. Their flowers might be extra slippery to deter nectar-thieving ants. Deter? I think that deter, maybe. Whatever the adaptation, it tends to be economical in its specifics. S's are hard. Specificity. S's and C's when they sound like an S. SPECIFICITY. There's a purpose to every tiny variation. This is true for all areas of plant philosophy. Every part of the architecture of a plant's body is there for a reason, calibrated to fit its task. No more, no less. Any sense that immobility implies passivity is quickly banished by a look at plants' vast capacity to make chemical weapons. Plants are themselves synthetic chemists, surpassing the best human technology in terms of the subtle complexity of the chemicals they can synthesize. A leaf, sensing that it has been nibbled, can produce a plume of airborne chemicals that tell a plant's more distant branches to activate their immune responses, or their immune systems, manufacturing yet more repellent chemicals to deter incoming aphids and other plant-eating bugs. Several species of plants have been found to identify caterpillar species by sensing the compounds in its saliva, and then synthesize the exact compounds to summon its predator. Parasitic wasps then obligingly arrive to take care of the caterpillars. But Kauai's plants have none of these defenses, or in any case, far fewer. Any that the plant's predecessors may have had, thorns or poison or repellent scents, were completely dropped after they landed on this island. No large land mammals, reptiles, or other potential predators made the journey from the mainland to the remote island chain. In fact, the only land mammal native to all of Hawaii is a small fuzzy bat. The journey its ancestor must have taken from North America is almost unthinkable. It likely gusted over inside a storm. From the plant's evolutionary perspective, there is no reason to spend energy on defenses when there are no predators to fend off, so mint has lost their mint oil and stinging nettles do not sting. Scientists ominously refer to this process as species becoming naive. Once threats show up, this blissful naivety is often fatal. Kauai, like the rest of Hawaii, is now beset by invasive species that evolved elsewhere in less comfortable conditions. Those species are more aggressive, or resourceful, to use a less emotionally loaded term, because they have to be. In Kauai, they take over ecological niches easily. NICHES. Native plants don't stand a chance. As a result, Hawaii is losing plant species at the rate of 1 per year, compared to the natural background rate of roughly 1 every 10,000 years. That's where Perlman comes in. He and his field partner, Ken Wood, deal exclusively in plants with 50 or fewer individuals left. In many cases, much fewer, maybe 2 or 3. Of the 238 species on that list at the time of my visit, 82 were on Kauai. Without Perlman, rare Hawaiian plants die out forever. With him, they at least stand a chance. To reach these plants, Perlman rappels down cliffs and sometimes jumps out of helicopters to reach a cluster of sometimes as few as 5 plants clinging to a remote cliffside on a Pacific island. In cases where the remaining male plants are too far from the last remaining females to naturally pollinate and reproduce, Perlman will bag the pollen from the males, lovingly carry it to the females, and apply it to their sexual parts with a paintbrush. Finding these plants involves trekking for days, eating granola bars and foil packets of tuna to save precious space in his pack for bulky botanizing tools. Sometimes he arrives at the plant too soon. It hasn't sexually matured, perhaps, and the flower hasn't yet opened, and the whole endeavor must be postponed. The time-intensive nature of this process means that Perlman develops relationships with plants he aims to save. He isn't always successful. That would be impossible. I've already witnessed about 20 species go extinct in the wild, he says. He has sat beside the last of his species and kept it company as it died. Plant death, like human death, is a question of both biology and philosophy. Is a person dead when their heart fails, or when their brain does? A plant can technically be reproduced in a lab from just a few living cells, but a plant with just a few living cells left is not a thriving plant. Perlman considers a plant dead when enough of its tissues have succumbed that it no longer has any chance of thriving in the wild. It dehydrates, wilts, turns brown, collapses. To Perlman, that's a plant's evolutionary invention. That a plant's evolutionary invention would end there is enough of a reason to save it. You don't just abandon a species, not if you can still get to it, even if it's on the face of a remote and jagged cliff. Or, as Wood puts it, we try because we're not going to not try. Sadly, failure is part of the job. Once, when the last known individual of a native flower finally withered and died, Perlman dug up the plant and brought it to a bar. Overcome with emotion, he raised a toast to the plant's life. It's fair to say that most people have little feeling toward rare plants, and fewer have any idea of the fight going on to bring them back from the brink. While the average person can differentiate between several types of canines, they are far less likely to know a beech from a birch, or an ear of wheat from an ear of rye. Beech, it's not like, it's two E's. B-E-E-C-H. This is understandable. Plants are much further from us evolutionarily, having evolved in a context so unlike our own. They make food out of light and grow rooted to one spot, spending decades or centuries probing their environments for sustenance. Their way of life is so alien as to often preclude them in our imagination from even having a way of life. This state of unseen has become a named affliction, lamented among botanists, plant blindness, the tendency to view plant life as an an indistinguishable mass, a green smudge, rather than as thousands of genetically separate and fragile individuals, as distinct from one another as a lion is from a trout. The term shows up in research papers and at conferences where worried scientists wring their hands over how to get the public to even see the subjects of their life's work. For botanists, plant blindness amounts to a perennial struggle to get basic research funded, or to convince anyone that a particular plant needs saving if it falls outside the few plants included in the human economy, like the type of corn with the highest starch content, which we use to feed cows, or the 2 species of coffee we drink. Generally speaking, humankind knows very little about the tender green flesh that frames our varied landscape and populates almost every inch of unpaved ground around us. The plant kingdom keeps its secret well hidden.